Because we have people beaming in
for
from
days.
all over the country.
They've been lining up
all over the world,
like camping in front, waiting for us.
Brian, you look exceptionally handsome today.
Oh,
exceptionally. I mean, you're always handsome. So the fact that you look even more handsome.
Well, yes.
Nice,
Ian, you look good too.
Well, thank you. And so do all the adoring watchers who are watching us right now.
Hi, everybody.
You came in during the mutual adulation portion of the show.
They want to know what happens behind the scenes. This is what we do. We just wax each other's cars and what?
Aaron, is there anything different that I'm doing today that makes me look exceptionally?
We'll talk about that after.
Wow.
Or during?
Or perhaps during. Who knows?
Welcome everybody.
Hi
to Accademia Giallo for
live here. How long were we live? Like
53 seconds.
53 seconds, yeah. No, so this is our April edition of Accademia Giallo, and we're doing a sort of something I don't think we've done yet in the years we've been running the show, is talk about a film that is giallo, but it's also a comedy.
Right.
And I got to ask, are there other comedies in this genre, other spoofs, or is this kind of a singular film?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, they're definitely slasher spoofs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, are there a lot of like funny gialli? I don't know.
I think
intentionally funny.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. There are plenty that you're like, wow, I'm laughing, but maybe I'm not supposed to be laughing.
Right.
Well, we're talking about The Editor from 2014, a film that was co-directed by Adam Brooks and Matthew Kennedy.
Way to go, Scream Factory.
Yes, and it was co-written by Adam Brooks, Matthew Kennedy, and Connor Sweeney.
Yep.
This is, I don't know quite where to begin with this movie. You got the Blu-ray. I'm going to be picking that bad boy up at some point.
Ian, I have to ask, like, what is your familiarity with the Astron 6 movie filmmaking collective?
Good question.
You would probably have to fill me in on some of the other works of the Astron 6 Film Collective, which, hey, that sounds like a great place to lead off. Oh, wait, no, hold on a second. We got to lead off with comments already. Jonas Hallberg, thank you. Saying good evening.
Good day,
Mrs.
sir.
Chester also says
Mrs.
hello.
Chester's here too. This is awesome.
Hello.
Yeah, it's a big old party. So welcome. But yeah, so tell me about this Astron 6. I saw the logo ahead of the movie, and I immediately thought, first, it was early in the morning, so I thought, wait, is this Vestron Video? No, this is Astron 6. I don't know if that's a riff on it, but tell me about it.
I think it is because the Astron, and Brian, feel free to chime in.
I will chime
as I leave things out. But
he's got to chime in because, as Mrs. Chester points out, as did we, Brian looks so scholarly.
Oh, geez.
I teased him before
what's going on, man?
I teased him before he went live because I asked him if he did not have an editor themed T-shirt. And he said he did not. So,
do you have any?
Well, I do have. I have like a flannel that's real similar to what he wears in the movie, and I almost wore that, but I was like, it's too on the nose,
I always wear this. You're always
like
wearing
the same shirt.
You're always wearing the same clothes too. I'm a detective. Okay,
yes.
That's why.
All right.
So Astron 6 is a filmmaking collective that is based out of Canada, and they are comprised of our three screenwriters: Connor Sweeney, Adam Brooks, and Matthew Kennedy, as well as Stephen Kostansky and Jeremy Gillespie.
Yep.
And you see all of those names in the credits of this movie and in their other features. This was preceded by Father's Day and Manborg, both of which came out, I think, like 2011, 2012. And Astron 6's kind of aesthetic is they love to homage certain genres. Like Father's Day was very much kind of like homaging the exploitation, rape, revenge, grindhouse, like 70s and 80s. Manborg is a riff on like the 80s sci-fi, like direct-to-video stuff that you saw coming out from Charlie Band Media, things like that.
By the way, did you happen to catch? There's a little bit where like the detective is reading the newspaper, and on the cover it says "Dad raped."
I did see
So
that. Was that
there's a
an
lot of
in-joke?
little homage,
Yeah.
like little in joke to all their movies and stuff that you'll catch
Yeah,
in there.
they love movies. They love
Yeah.
genre movies especially, and this was their riff on Italian horror in general. I wouldn't say it's specifically going for the giallo. I think it's also including things like Suspiria and like
Oh yeah,
the Fulci,
Beyond. Yeah.
the Umberto Lenzi, like
Yep.
police dramas.
Everything.
Like it really is just kind of like Italian genre. We're taking just a big bite out of all of that. But that's kind of their thing. And then they've gone on to do things like PG Gorman.
Oh,
Psycho Gorman,
Psycho Gorman. Yeah, Psycho
Okay.
Gorman. And
which I love that movie.
The Void. Stephen Kostansky has done more in terms of as a solo director, doing things like Frankie Frico, and he did the Leprechaun Returns belated sequel. So yeah, they're just amazing guys, and they're based out of Canada. They do all of their own stuff. Like I love like when you watch the credits, all the same names over and over again, because they all just kind of just do everything. Stephen Kostansky did the effects for this one. Like he did all the like hands getting chopped off and people's faces getting ripped off. And
there's a lot of details that go into like the making of this movie is crazy.
So good. It's so good. And Scream Factory's Blu-ray, there's a commentary track, but there's also like a bunch of feature.
Take a shot.
Well, no, that's great because I definitely, as I said, we'll be picking that up and diving in. This movie, I think I do need to watch it again because it was kind of a mixed bag.
Agreed.
The first 15 minutes, I thought I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into. It seemed
there's a lot that happens. Even just the opening title screen is crazy,
Well, it's just it felt like they were trying to do, and I was kind of conflicted watching it because I was like, it's like they're trying to do Airplane or something, but what's wrong with that? Because the Zucker, they really did. They kind of dressed up their comedy in the genre and played it for laughs, but it felt almost like the Airplane imitators, or like by the time you get to Scary Movie 3 or 4, it's just like there's way too much going on and it's not specific enough to be its own movie. But then I feel like it really did get into being its own movie while deftly parodying or homaging some of the films that it was trying to parody on homage. So yeah, after a bit of a rough start, I think it was pretty smooth sailing. It got like really convoluted and I got completely lost at certain points. And I wondered if that was another kind of feather in the cap of the homage, because as we've discussed, and it's a shame that John is not here to yell, yes, that's what I'm talking about. I'm constantly picking up like where this is a giant plot hole. This is inconsistent. I feel like that was in this movie. Maybe I missed the explanations for a lot of things, but I don't think I did.
I think it's purposeful in some ways as well. Like you just, it's on by design.
Yes. You in the back. Yes.
Yeah, please. No. But so delving into this movie, like I forget who chose this for April, right?
I think it was either you or me who threw it out there as an idea.
No, I definitely backed it. I just don't remember who was like, hey, let's do the editor or whatever.
I think it was you.
It was not me, because I would have totally been like, let's do the editor like a million.
It might have even come from
years ago.
It might have come from either a conversation we had on another show or a comment, and I don't remember. And if it was a comment from a viewer, I apologize because my brain is
something where I jumped on and I piggybacked that idea because like I love this movie.
I like how you don't want to take credit for it.
No, dude, I would totally take credit for it. But I just remember being like, yes, let's do that. Instead of being like, no, guys, forget that movie. Let's do the editor. Because I would have totally done that. But I forgot where I was going to. So yeah, I was very interested to see Ian's take on it, because Ian has always been sort of the center of this Accademia Giallo, right? Where we're introducing you to all these different tropes, all these different films, all these different things that make up Giallo, right?
Yeah.
So for you to watch this movie, for me, it was super interesting because I wanted to see like how far you've come along in your journey and everything. And then not just that, but like would you find this funny or disrespectful? You know what I mean? All those things were in my head when this movie was brought into the forefront for us to discuss, because, you know, as somebody that has eventually done away with the filter, right? Like the whole movie filter in order to come in. I remember one of the most recent ones that we watched. I was like, man, Ian, you go. Like you were like laying out
Francesca, I think.
Yes, yeah. Like that was the one
observing
where
all of the neo
I was like, man, that's great that like you've come this far and like you're able to recognize all these little things that make a Giallo. So with this one, I think they've done their homework with this movie in terms of replicating certain, like they just ape certain scenes and just, you know, redo it for their own purpose or whatever, but in such a way that I think is respectful to, you know, the previous movies, to the genre. And not for nothing, like they know they've done their homework, they've seen the movies. This is sort of like, I don't know, I don't know what to call this movie, because I don't think it's necessarily like a spoof on everything. I think it's a send up, that for sure. But you know, when I see something like Scary Movie, I think they're more making fun of like the whole genre in order to make a buck. Whereas this, they put a lot of their own money into this movie.
It's a love letter. Like it's a love letter as well as like our hyper riff on it.
Right.
Well, I think it's interesting, and we will, for the folks out there watching this, I haven't put up the spoiler banner yet. I promise we will actually talk about what the hell this movie actually is in a moment, because right now all you know is it's the editor and it's kind of a parody. I think, you know, Scary Movie kind of gets a bad rap. I think the original Scary Movie was great because it was sort of, you know, it came out in 2000, so there'll probably be a retrospective this year.
Oh, wow.
25
Isn't
years
there
ago.
another one coming too?
I think you're right.
Please.
There's a new Scary Movie coming. Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep things light, guys. My goodness. But no, it was done in that same idea of there being an airplane style parody movie, which there hadn't been for a long time, like a mainstream one.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting is the Zuckermans took over after a while, right? Like
Zucker, Abrams, Zucker. I think weren't they involved in the original Scary Movie?
I don't think so. I think
that was the Wayans brothers, right?
Yeah.
Wayans brothers.
But later on,
that's
later on, they jumped in there and they were like, "Let's."
When it was awful, yes. Which is the irony of ironies, because I love Airplane.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But the thing is about Scary Movie 1 and Airplane, and to a lesser extent Airplane 2, is they hold together as actual movies and not just parodies. Because I grew up watching Airplane and I had no context for Airport 77 or any of the other kind of disaster movies, and so I just loved Ted, Stryker, and Elaine, and I wanted to see them, you know, succeed and land the plane.
Right.
You know, Scary Movie is a different kind of thing because Stryker, and we get a lot of that in the editor.
Yes.
Wow.
Which I want to discuss.
But Scary Movie, even though it's a riff on Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and all those, that still kind of holds together as its own thing. The other films are literally just Mad Magazine, you know, parodies of scenes and kind of cobbled together. But the editor, I think, stands on that same pedestal as those other movies, because it's not just riffing on those genres or on the genre and those other movies. It's recreating them with such fidelity that you could make an honest to God Giallo movie with this film just by cutting out the jokes. Because there's some crazy murders, there's the requisite nudity, there's the the mystery of the killer and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, you'd have to kind of fill in a few, you know, blanks and throw in some seriousness here and there, but just aesthetically, there's some beautiful stuff happening in this movie where our editor is kind of like losing his mind, and he like goes through the portal of his you know, his Steenbeck editing machine and kind of comes out the other side, and they do some amazing things with light. I was in awe of this film.
Good.
And aesthetically,
it makes it that much more impressive because these are like legit filmmakers that made this movie. And not only that, but I think they won $100,000 grant initially to make this movie.
Wow.
Because now I forget her name. and I hate this because it makes me such a terrible horror movie fan. But who's the lady from Chicago that did one of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wait, is it Rachel Talalay?
Yes. I
That's
think
why she gets a special thanks.
yes, yeah. So I think she was working up in a school where they were going to or whatever, and she helped them win this $100,000 grant
She's
in
from
order to make this
Chicago?
movie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think she lives here. I'm not sure if she's from,
Cool.
but I remember when we did when we went to that I think it was a DePaul study on horror or whatever. She was involved in all that stuff. So
Nice. Okay.
so yeah, so she helped them get $100,000 grant to make this movie. They ran out of money, so they maxed out all their credit cards. They did what they could. So I think it ended up being like $160,000 like in total for this movie, and it doesn't feel that way. It feels like it was like that's what you're in terms of what you're pointing out, Ian. Like I think it's great because it feels like it could have come from like when we were watching Francesca, we were remarking that this feels like it could have came from the 70s.
Yeah.
They got everything perfectly right in this movie. The look, so all the behind the scenes stuff, like I think they hired a production company to come in and help them with everything, but they're so used to working with them themselves. So the production company slowed them down or whatever. So I think this ended up taking over a year to make when it was like they were supposed to. I think they started in 2012. It came out in 2014. So they ran into a lot of issues. But when you watch the finished product, you don't get any of that stuff. So that's what makes it so impressive, you know?
Yeah, and it is one of those films that I don't know how much it's talked about in Giallo circles, or if it's divisive, or
Not
if
much,
people love it.
actually. Right?
But
Yeah.
it feels like something that if they're it should come back around. I would love to go see this as like a midnight movie at the Music Box or
Mhm.
something, or any time of day, honestly, just from the aesthetics. Now, the one thing, and I wasn't quite sure if this was intentional or I don't know anything about these Astron 6 guys, and I didn't when I first put on the movie, but the opening is a panning across a bar shot, and we see, a nude dancer in the background. And as we're panning across this bar, there's glasses and there's booze, and you know what they don't have? J&B. And so I thought, wait a second, who are these jokers, these amateurs that they're going to do this in their opening shot of a Giallo parody and not have some J&B? But you know what? I didn't catch one J&B in the entire movie. So I'm wondering if this is like Giallo.
That has to be a choice. That's
right.
Interesting. Yeah.
They're like, there's nothing in there.
Do you guys know why?
No, why?
Okay. So I forget the name of the actual liquor, but it's shown in multiple shots in this movie. They were able to they helped them pay some of the money that they were recouping. So the brand is like all over the place. So it's kind of like they did the same thing.
Yeah, they did their
right?
J&B.
Right. With this Canadian brand or whatever that helped them finish the movie. So
that's funny.
That's basically why you don't see any other.
I love that.
But there is a bottle if you catch it. I forget who's drinking it, but it'll like when he's tilting it, you see it kind of appear in the light and it says Giallo on the bottle. So
they could have at least named a character JB.
They could have.
But no. So speaking of characters, what is this movie about? AC, why don't you give us the 30,000-foot view of the editor?
Well, we have Ray, who is our editor, our titular character.
Played by Adam Brooks.
Played by Adam Brooks. And he is, he's suffering from the trauma. He has the four fingers on his right hand, have been severed in an editing accident, which is how it's introduced. We later get to see the editing accident in action, but I love the fact that it was just an editing accident, as though it's something that's common.
We also later get to see what editor means in in the Greek
that's right,
language, whatever.
So anyway,
which I thought was super hilarious.
He's working for your typical sleazy Italian film producer, cutting together horror films, and there is a murder that happens. One of the lead actors is murdered, and so the investigator Peter comes in, played by Matthew Kennedy. And he's investigating, and he starts he brings in Cal, who's the co-star of the movie, to kind of be his second eyes on the ground in terms of investigating. And Peter and Cal start to make goo eyes at each other throughout the movie, which makes me laugh really hard. Cal's played by Connor Sweeney. But then there's also, like our editor's assistant, Bella, played by Samantha Hill. Like he's got troubles at home with his wife, played by Paz de la Huerta. And so there's just this great big stew, an Italian goulash, if you will. And it is, so it's all about the murder mystery and finding out who is murdering these people involved in this film. And will our editor actually learn to come to terms with, the assignment that he's been given and be able to find satisfaction in his work again? There's so many journeys that are occurring over the course of this 94-minute movie.
Very well done. I want to start with how clever, how deep these cats go in terms of this movie. Our lead, our editor, Ray Ciso. Brian, and the copious extras or commentaries that you've seen on that disc, did anyone get into what his name is?
Ray Ciso?
What it means?
Ray Ciso?
Yes.
Ray Ciso.
No?
Does it mean something to you, Ian?
It means something to the world. All right. And I picked this up because
Brian and I are like, what?
Ray Ciso.
There was something about, because I can't remember if I looked at his name or I was just like thinking about it while something else was going on. But it was Ray Ciso. Ciso sounds very Italian, but it sounds very specific, like it means something. And I looked it up. If you reverse the name, so it's Cisore or Cisore, it's a common misspelling of the Italian word for scissors, which an editor might use on film.
There you go.
You sneaky little bastards.
There you go.
Good job, Ian. You didn't need some special feature to point that out.
Right. But that's what makes this movie so special. Like they're
smart.
I'm sure there's a million like little
Easter
red
eggs
herrings Easter eggs. There you go. In this movie that I never even picked up, just like that one,
But when I figured that out, I'm like, I'm totally in love with this movie. I also love the fact that we think that this movie is it's the editor's story, but it turns out to kind of be about the detective at the end. And before we get any further, I'm going to put on some spoilers just in case. Folks, if you haven't seen this movie, go seek it out, check it out, buy it sight unseen, especially if you're a fan of the genre. I almost guarantee you will not be disappointed. But this cast is absolutely bonkers. I love the violence in this. It kind of, I don't know if rubbed me the wrong way is the right phrase, but especially early on, some of the graphic violence I thought was a bit much for a film that was trying to parody or pay homage to Giallo, because a lot of, we've seen a lot of movies where it's not that, crazy or explosive in terms of the gore, but as they go further and further over the top, I kind of, forgave it because it is just downright ridiculous. They even got a Bay of Blood, I think, kind of reference in there with the couple and Cal and his lady friend getting chainsawed in the back, and then Cal doing a full frontal nudity splattered in blood. This actor, I would imagine he requested this because there's quite a dangle on that during that fight scene. But it's I couldn't believe some of the effects that I saw in this movie. It looked to be all practical. You see a lady get her, like, the front part of her face and neck ripped off, like by the scalp, and then attempted to be put back on, and it's both grotesque and hilarious.
Pushed back on.
I love that it does go back on though, like it fits. It's a little sore.
Like they've done it before. You know what I mean? Like that's what it feels like.
I love, because they think it's a mask. For people who are watching, like they just come and like tear her face off, and she's like left screaming. This big gaping red wound in her face.
But that's to your point, Ian. if you were watching a lot of Astron 6, especially from back in the day,
Yeah.
they love gore, they love practical special effects. The thing that wrote me into the whole collective is a movie called, I think it was called Phantasmagoria or something like that. It's a little short film where they go in to figure out like some monster that's like roaming around in some basement area or whatever. But it's so entertaining. It's so hilarious. They're. It feels like they've always been horror fans, like forever, and they've been given like maybe they were gifted a camera or whatever, but it feels like all of them know what they're doing. So that's it's extended into this movie where it feels like they do not squander any opportunity to use like just a gore trick or whatever, you know.
And they do all their own stunts, and I mean, like they're just like absolutely
the fire scenes, like that's actually somebody getting lit up, and what's funny is they didn't have the ability to get the real fire retardant stuff, right? Because like you need permits and you need a safety crew to be on board and all that, so they couldn't afford any of that stuff. So they made their own fire retardant stuff by searching the internet. And so what you see is actually somebody getting lit on fire for real using what they what they created.
They're patent pending fire retardant.
Yeah, right.
I can't even imagine. It's cool. We got this from the internet.
Yeah, but that's how they make their movies, man. That's what makes them so great.
Well, Psycho Gorman is a movie that I know everybody I've heard mention it like sings its praises. It's a blind spot for me. I never got around to it, but knowing that it's the same crew who made this, I want to find out about all
Please
of it.
invite me to that show if you ever get around to, because I love that movie.
Yeah. That's
all right.
That's a fun one.
Cool.
And it does seem like Astron 6's aesthetic is horror, but also with comedy. I would say that the straightest horror film they've done is The Void. Like that one feels like a straight ahead horror film without any jokes. Because I think that's kind of the anomaly in their filmography in terms of like that one actually is scary. And then the rest of them are hilarious and funny.
Let me ask you, do you think was that a more recent one, The Void?
2016 or 17?
2017. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm wondering if that was sort of their gateway into doing legit horror, was parodying other genres. Like, hey, we can do such a great job of making this look like an actual horror movie, but it's got jokes, but we really want to, we sing, but we really want to direct or something.
What's interesting about The Void is I think it's the special effects people that went on to make that movie completely. With some help with some of the other producers or whatever. But I think it was their vision completely that made that movie. So that's why it feels a little disjointed from what their normal shtick is or whatever, you know. But not taking anything away, I think, but that's what the difference is.
And before we get back to this movie, I mean, Stephen Kostanski's Leprechaun Returns is, I would say, the best of the Leprechaun movies. Like, it's really good. The one thing that's missing,
not much of a bar, though, is it? Like...
Well, having done all of the Leprechaun movies, I was like, actually, I'm enjoying this more than I thought I would. But like, you get to the last one that Stephen Kostanski directed, it's the right blend of horror and comedy.
Okay,
and like the acting is solid. I'm like, wow, like this is really, really good. And then I went, oh, it's Stephen Kostanski. Of course, it's good because that's exactly like his wheelhouse.
Yeah,
with a name like this, what is it? Kostanski. You know it's got to be good. I messed up that Smucker's reference completely, so pardon. But yeah, okay. So let's get back to the editor. Have you guys all seen Nurse 3D? I assume.
Yes.
I actually have not seen it. This is the only thing I've seen Paz de la Huerta in, and I'm like,
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's funny is I actually think that she's the worst thing of this movie.
I thought so too, which that is why I didn't seek out more of her stuff.
So a little personal thing with her is like, I know I don't like getting into personal things with people or whatever, but I know she had a really terrible drug problem. And this is coming after Boardwalk Empire, like after she ended that run, right?
Yeah, because she's top billed in this.
Yeah, and like I think she was given top bill because of that. But this is sort of like that movie where you kind of get to see a lot of that stuff, unfortunately, like that kind of haziness that she, sometimes brings to her roles, but more so in this movie. Okay. In Nurse 3D, I feel like the filmmakers knew how to handle her, so it comes off a little bit more natural or whatever.
Got it.
But again, like I don't like talking about that stuff because it's like hearsay or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you see some of that stuff in this movie, which to me it takes me out of the movie. I feel like she's great, like in other stuff that you see her in, but in this one, she seems especially kind of like out of
And
it.
I also wanted to say, like, I having only seen her in this, I think she's kind of hilarious in what she's doing because she's kind of like this over the top bad actor.
Has
And
been kind of
yeah, and I'm like, is that is she playing that or is
maybe
she that?
like
You know, it's like
maybe I think the casting department knew exactly what they were doing. You know?
Well, because my question is like, I can't remember when Nurse 3D came out, but it was around this time,
It was
right?
right
same
after
time, yeah,
this.
same. Yeah.
Okay. Because I saw that movie for the first time late last year, probably last year for Mark Krawczyk's Spoiler Room. He did a whole
Cool.
month of Nurse movies, and Nurse 3D was in there. And I don't remember much about that movie, but she was. It was kind of strange, and I kind of forgot about it until she pops up in this movie. Like, where do I know? Oh, that's right, she's the nurse. But yeah, there's an incongruity to her performance that really kind of bugged me until she pops up at the end when everything is kind of going off the rails anyway. I'm like, okay, this makes sense now that she is part of this whole like stew that's going on. At one point, our editor is bonked on the head, and he wakes up and he's tied up, and he's sitting by a makeshift campfire, and Cal, who's one of the villains of the piece, he's this kind of arrogant American actor who wants to be the star of the movie, but he's a terrible performer. And our editor even remarks to him like, here's one of the ways I know that you're bad at this. Every time you have something important to say, you blink or you squint your eyes. And then they cut to later, he's editing a scene that Cal's in, and you can't stop noticing how much I want to go back and watch this movie again because we've seen other moments of him on screen, and I just wonder if he's blinking or squinting in that, and add to the rewatch factor. But anyway, our editor wakes up, he sees Cal's giving kind of a villain monologue, and then editor's wife is there. And Ray Ciso, I should just refer to him by his name, and they start having sex right in front of him, and then it stops and everything just kind of goes off the rails. And like, yeah, this is kind of perfect. I
like how they always call him editor. Like just they do, like, that's his name. Hey, editor, you just look, editor.
Well, that is one thing they call him. Very few people call him Ray Ciso, but aside from editor, they also call him something, and this you can tell is a very 2014 movie, cripple. The studio head in particular, at one point, I mean, it gets to be so bad that he says, yeah, I just like having a cripple around on set. I'm like,
I think it's fun.
Wow.
I think it's fun.
It's fun.
I think it's funny, right?
And then he's like going, I thought it'd be fun to have a cripple, but we don't, you're not even any fun.
Right. As he fires him. Yeah. It's oh, wow.
But you were talking about the cast. I mean, in addition to Paz de la Huerta and our Astron 6 folks, we have people like Lawrence Harvey from, Human Centipede 2. We have Udo Kier, who, of Suspiria fame. So there's a direct link. And then the woman who plays Bella, Samantha Hill, I was looking her up because she was young Cosette in Les Miserables on Broadway. Like, they have like a Broadway actor, and I think she's wonderful. I think she's really cute and sweet and funny, and knows what movie she's in.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, everybody in this is taking it seriously. Even the actors who are over the top, I feel like you can find a parallel to another Giallo film where there was a character in there who was acting the way that they did. I mean, even Cal, the ridiculous, I think he's the most cartoonish. Well, maybe our inspector, but it really works for him. But Cal kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But he strikes me as, okay, here's the American actor who's like just over in Italy for a vacation and shooting the movie because they're going to pay for his meals. That very much feels like this part.
When he's loading his trunk with all the knives and shit, like, it's just hilarious. It's like, a lot of that stuff is so in your face, but it's at the same time like they're still playing everything straight, and it just makes it so perfect, you know. A little interesting bit about Lawrence Harvey and the casting for that. I'm sorry, not Lawrence Harvey, Udo Kier. When he first read the script, he didn't understand it one bit, and he was so confused by it. But he took the job anyway because he liked what he read, even like he didn't understand the script or whatever. So
also, Udo Kier is not that choosy. In his
true.
His later
Very
years,
true.
Udo Kier will come to the opening of a door, you know.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I remember. So I had a wonderful meeting with Udo Kier at Horror Find in Boston. No, Baltimore. Baltimore, outside of it was when the first book Horror 101 was coming out. And Udo Kier, like, we had several of the authors there, and Udo Kier took a liking to one of our group, and it was the most homophobic of the bunch. And so like Udo Kier like zeroed in on him and like was just hitting on him all convention long.
Oh no.
And we're just like, yes, get that guy. Get that guy.
What's funny, I also have an Udo Kier story. Because when
Wait,
John
were you that guy, Brian?
No.
Well, that guy's name was Brian Martinez.
From the Giallo Room. No, when we flew down to Texas Frightmare, when Dario Argento was going to be there, I was like, I'm not missing this opportunity. And John Kitley, unfortunately, he's not here to relish in well, that too. But he was what prompted me to like fly out there. Like he was just so great about like making it happen and being with me during that time because it was a rough time for me. But anyway, we fly down there. You know, I think it's night one of the convention. Everybody is like, they already did like their thing or whatever, so it's like everyone's hanging out during the lounge, and then we see some of the people that we're here to see like kind of work their way into the lounge, including Udo Kier. And I kind of like so it was myself, John Kitley, Scott was there,
Scott Bradley, yep.
Scott Bradley, yes, of
Hellbent for Horror.
Yes. you link below, whatever. But anyway, like we saw him walk in and I was like, ooh, like I wouldn't like, I kind of got up all excited or whatever. And then I think John was like, he sat me down. He was like, just, you know, take it easy because he's a magnet for that stuff, whatever. I was like, what are you talking about? And then, so we were sitting there talking still. And then we see Udo work his way to the bar. And so we're sitting down. So we see everything. He's grabbing asses, man. Like he's like literally grabbing dude, like, certain guys like that we saw during the day in the horror convention looked like macho type or whatever. He's grabbing some of these guys. I'm sitting there just waiting for something to happen, but they're like, what the fuck? Oh, and then they see it's Udo Kier and like, oh, it's Udo.
Oh, that's cool. I guess.
So I thought that was an interesting take on, because a lot of times when you see like, say, girls or whatever, like cosplayers, they guys get a little grabby with them. So it was a nice little flip to see that happen. You know what I mean? Because maybe some of these guys were the ones that were groping younger girls earlier in their lives or whatever.
I didn't know Udo Kier went that way.
Oh yeah.
No,
yeah.
I mostly, I mean, I don't know anything about him aside from the few.
Well, I don't know that I knew it, but I knew it after that weekend.
Okay. Well, because when you said that, I didn't know if he was just like kind of putting it on to make that guy uncomfortable or whatever. But that's really cool.
I think Udo Kier is responsible for turning several people.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Like their lone homosexual experience is with Udo Kier.
Allegedly.
I don't know if you've ever had any
experiences with Udo Kier? No.
With Brian Kirst?
Not yet. What about him?
Brian Kirst? No.
Yeah.
On this show anyway, or no? He's got amazing Udo Kier stories. He's the one where I first learned where Udo Kier is, you know, gay.
And how?
Yes.
And how? And I love how
we don't need to get into that. No. But all right.
Well,
so
you don't want to get into that.
All right. So let's.
I mean, maybe you do though.
Well, that's true. And if you do, that's okay.
That's totally okay.
Love and acceptance here on Accademia Giallo.
Udo Kier has like some of my favorite moments in this movie too. Every time he's weird, I'm like, that's so funny. Like,
Yeah.
he's just like, that's weird.
But what's funny is there's no context to it. He just says, like, there's no more to it. He's like, yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Anyway, like, and he moves on to the next thing.
Given his reaction apparently to the screenplay, I'm wondering if that was him just like stopping the scene and going, "This is weird."
Right.
Like, just we'll use it. Keep going. But no, I can't. At one point,
it's 3:42. We haven't even talked about the actual.
Well, I can't remember who was the person who got chopped up in the editing room. It was going to be the eyes, but it ended up being the scissors. Was that Bella?
That's Bella.
Okay. At one point, the studio executive orders some underlings to clear the body out of the editing bay. So I think the editor can get back to work on the picture that's running behind. And it's just this great kind of a bizarre airplane-esque moment where the two guys are trying to lift this body up, this horribly mangled corpse. And so one guy says, "Lift her legs." And the other one says, "I'm trying. She's so pretty."
Yeah.
Or she's too pretty.
Yep.
Again, you're just like, it's a record scratch. Like, what is going on? But I do want to kind of talk about our inspector character.
Yes.
Matthew Kennedy playing Peter Porphyry. Which, yeah. Potpourri, I keep calling him, but he's got an interesting relationship with a lot of characters in this movie and a very troubled past, which reminded me of your room is a locked door and only I have the key, or your vice is a locked door and only I have the key, which, Sergio Martino and the great fantasy sequence involving Edwige Fenech and the broken glass and everything, and like cascading over her. And
you're talking about Mrs. Ward.
Oh, is that Mrs. Ward? Okay, sorry. Mm-hmm. I'm getting my movies mixed up. Shame on me.
You're getting your vices mixed up.
Yeah.
Seriously. Okay, so it was yes, Vice and Edwige Fenech. Forgive me, Jolly. I turn in my
card. No, you can keep it. It's
yeah.
Thank you.
So
the fact that you were referencing it at all makes me really happy.
Right, exactly.
Well, but what I loved is that not only is that whole kind of thing from that film of the lovers with this kind of like a weird fetish that's sexy and kind of dangerous. Not only is that parodied here to great effect, but it's also shot beautifully in a great kind of, not only a recreation but an elevation. You're talking about a scene or not exactly a trope, but something that was done 30 years prior. They're like, okay, we want to do this, we want to do it better, and we want to make it funny. It's just like compounding innovation. And the fact that it ends up with characters smearing themselves with like cake and or mud and crying while also trying to have sex. I'm like, if this movie did nothing else, if it was just a short taken from that feature, it would have been perfect.
So please do yourself a favor, buy yourself the Blu-ray, right?
Yeah.
There's a behind the scenes where they do, the scene where they also riff from Mrs. Ward, where she's in the rain and she's getting slapped around or whatever.
Yes.
So that's actually shot in, I forget whose, but one of their parents' backyard, with somebody holding a freaking hose, like
much like wait, hold on a second. I got to pull over because I'm getting it in. Much like the opening scene from Friday the 13th, A New Beginning with Corey Feldman. Sorry, go ahead.
No, excellent.
But no, that shows you like the whatchamacallit, just the creativeness that went into this movie. Like, we're gonna shoot this movie, we're gonna get it done, but we're also gonna get it done and make it look amazing as well.
Well, and on that same note, you've got all of the voices are post-production dubbed. Mm-hmm. They shot it as though it was an Italian movie where it was shot without sound, and then all the stuff gets dubbed in later. Like, they went to that level of homage, where you have sometimes where the lips don't match up, and that's by design. I'm like, it's just I love how kind of DIY they got about it, and at the same time, like, really getting into the weeds, into the details of things that you may not ever pick up on.
Well, it's also interesting that you mentioned that, because they had to shoot it that way because I think some of the audio got messed up like during the actual filming of the movie. So they had to go back and shoot a lot of ADR so that, you know, just so happened they're shooting their a Giallo homage.
Right.
So that stuff doesn't matter in Italian movies anyway. So.
Exactly.
But no, it's funny because like that is actually a great characteristic in terms of what makes this movie.
Yeah.
You know, like back when I did Gelato Giallo, that short film or whatever, I purposely did that in order to, you know, get that effect or whatever. They had to do that, but also it's a charm of the movie.
It's exactly right. Yeah.
I wrote down another exchange between characters because, again, it's just so stupid, but it's delivered so seriously.
So stupid, man.
When CISO is talking to Cal, and I think the studio executive is there, they try to insult each other, and CISO says, Cal says, have you ever even seen a film by Einstein? And CISO says, you mean Eisenstein? And Cal says, no, I mean Einstein. It's pronounced Einstein.
Yep. Well, because I mean, and I love the scene where Matthew Kennedy as Peter Porphyry is talking with his underling cop, and like basically just talks him into witnessing, you know, a fictitious murderer of the person who's killed his wife. And that scene straight out of House by the Cemetery with them chopping through the door. I mean, that's what I mean. I feel like they're covering all of Italian horror. And they're just like, if you like Italian horror, if you like Giallo, you've probably seen something like Suspiria. You've probably seen something like The Beyond, and you're just going to enjoy all of it.
They even have the blind girl with the dog in it.
I know. It's so good. It's so good.
Now, but that's what I mean about this movie. I think, yes, it's a send up of Italian Giallo, but if you just like any Italian horror, period, like this movie is going to get you. It's going to get you in that special place, right, where you reserve for like the movies that you really love. Like I love Demons. If I were to see a send up of something that got that perfect, I'd be like, okay, you got my respect. That's what this movie does to all the Italian horror genre. So.
Brian, can you do me a favor? Can you exit and come back? I want you to change your subtitle from the Giallo Room to Shout Factory because you have been holding up that disc. And rightfully so.
But like, I just wanted to also mention that this was part of a crowdfunder. And they sent this to me because I donated to their crowdfunder back in the day when they were trying to complete the goddamn movie. So that's why I have this.
And I love the fact that Scream Factory picked it up because, you know, like I think like Troma distributed their first, at least Father's Day and maybe Manborg. I can't remember who did Manborg. So this was kind of like a step up for them to be actually getting a
Wolf
larger release. Oh, Wolf. Well, that's not them though, is it? It's Canadian.
It's part of them. Like I think it's members of Astron 6 and if you see any of those movies, especially from Canada, look up
they all hang out with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so couple of things. One, I think it's cool that you backed the crowdfunder. I assume this is before Shout Factory got involved, so they picked up the final film and then distributed it. So you supported it probably at a tier where you were going to get a copy of the movie, but you ended up getting this extras filled Shout Factory Blu-ray, so it's like an extra bonus. But the $1 million question with this film, and it's not a point of criticism, it's just genuine curiosity. And I don't know if anybody on this panel can answer it. I feel like we would need to get almost someone off the street. And I opened this conversation by talking about Airplane and how I saw it when I was a little kid, and it was just hilarious, partially because it was, you know, adult kind of jokes and everything. But you didn't have to have seen the disaster movies at reference. It was still just really funny. Is that the case with The Editor? Can you go into this movie understanding that it's a parody of kind of horror movies, but having never seen a Giallo film and still get it? Or because the genre is so weird and messed up that the jokes and the gags in here are so specific to that, that if you have no context, would you be like, I don't get any of this. This isn't doing it for me, except for like the most obvious stuff, like, you know, lift her legs, I'm trying, she's too pretty, which would work in kind of any genre.
Right. I think it's something I was going to mention that. Like that's probably the biggest downfall of this movie. I'm not going to wave it up again because you said that.
No.
That I'm a shout factory. But anyway, I think that if you go in cold, if you don't know anything about the Italian horror genre in general, right? Not even just giallo. I don't think you're going to get it as much as somebody that's into these movies will, you know. I think it's still funny. I think there's still stuff where you can glean from it that's like, oh, that's, you know, stupid, so dumb and entertaining. I'm still going to laugh, enjoy it or whatever. But I think this is one of those movies that is very singular in terms of like what it's trying to do, because it's referencing a specific thing, you know. So just like Airplane, I'm sure if you watched it because I watched it when I was a little kid, when I started like understanding the references, that's when I got it more and I enjoyed it even more, you know. So I think this is one of those movies where if you see it cold, you don't know what it is, you don't understand what it's riffing, it will give you some kind of an enjoyment. But please, if you're watching this show and you're seeing this movie for the first time being mentioned, do yourself a goddamn favor. Go out there and seek all the movies that this movie references, because you will not just enjoy this movie even more, but you will enjoy life even more.
And I think you'll also appreciate just what a feat it is that these filmmakers pull off the.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Because giallo is a very varied genre. I mean, we've been talking about it for years, and I don't think we've talked about gialli that are kind of the same. Like, oh, this is just like that other movie. Some similarities, you know, some crossovers with actors and certainly directors, but they tend to each have their own voice. But it's really something to take a genre that has so many distinct voices and styles, meld them into one motion picture that somehow encapsulates all of it without things just kind of bumping up against each other. But AC, jump in here.
I have two observations. One, and well said, Brian. I would say you can enjoy this one on its own merits because there is a murder mystery to be solved. Right. And it does track it does all the red herrings and everything. So I think you stay narratively engaged throughout, in that you're like, how is this going to work itself out? Like there's so many like little offshoots, but we're also trying to figure out who is the murderer. And then the second thing is, you know, like, I think if you watch this, like you said, Brian, you may not get it, but I would say that's true of almost any introduction into the Italian horror genre. True. Like you're going to be watching it and going, this is unlike anything that I've seen that, you know, somebody told me was a horror film. Like the only reason I'm here is because somebody said I would enjoy it. But I think like you need to develop your palate for it. I remember seeing, and I've said this on your show several times, Ian, like I remember first time seeing Suspiria and just being like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be getting out of this. It's so weird. Then I saw things like The Beyond and Gates from Hell. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is not a horror movie. Like, this is so outrageous. So I think this movie, yes, it may be off-putting because it is so true to the genre. Right. It is so true to what it is homaging, in that it is weird and it is inaccessible at times. And that's purposefully so, because that's Italian horror. And you need to go back to it and go back to it and go back to it and kind of like figure it out and be like, oh, I either like it or I don't like it. But you can't just watch one movie and be like, oh, I don't get it. It's like, you're not going to get it. It's so different.
I will say when I first watched this movie and noticed that this movie referenced Murder Rock, I was like, this movie has me forever. Like I love this movie automatically.
What is Murder Rock?
We should do that next.
Yeah. Is that a giallo?
Yeah. It's considered an 80s giallo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could sneak
Murder
it in there.
Rock.
But
we stopped talking about Udo Kier. Sorry, what?
I would say it's a good segue from this movie into Murder Rock, because
we'll see if Kitley. I'd be curious to see what Kitley, if he signs on for that.
Hey, he's got the Blu-ray, so
that's right. That's true. That's true.
I also like that it's another. This year seems to be the theme of like modern gialli, so that's fun. So as we wind down here, because we are Accademia Giallo, I want to challenge the fearsome faculty to assign some homework. because this is a, for people who haven't seen the editor, Brian, to your point, like, go seek out all the movies this is based on.
See Murder Rock for the next episode.
Aside from Murder Rock, what are I was going to say top 5, but I'll make it easier and do, what are the top 3 films? And we'll check off Mrs. Ward. So beyond The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, what are the top 3 films that would be homework for getting the maximum appreciation out of the editor? Can it be done?
May I?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are you okay? Yes. Okay. So I feel like The Beyond.
Yep. I was
is referenced really strongly, and it gives you that weird Italian supernatural feeling.
That ending too is like,
yeah.
Oh
yeah. So it's right off of.
So the Beyond is kind of, but, and as far as the Giallo goes, I would say things like Strange Vice or your Vice, the Sergio Martino's, and
anything where they slap a lovely young woman for no apparent reason whatsoever,
right. Other than just they have it coming. It seems to be the aesthetic.
Yep.
And then Brian, what would you say is kind of like the third?
I would say like something that like
Suspiria or
that encapsulates everything. Like I think the Beyond is a good call because you need to understand what that movie. Okay, you don't necessarily need to understand what that movie is, but you need to understand what it brings to the table in terms of Italian horror, right? In order to like come here and be like, well, why are there so many tarantulas in this movie or whatever, right? So yes, like you need the Beyond in order to like truly plug into this movie.
Yeah.
I would say things like there are things that happen, just like, for example, the killer just standing there and seeing Tristan Risk on the bed. Like I feel like if you've watched Black Belly of the Tarantula, you would know like that the shot of just the killer observing, like stuff like that I think is immaculate for this movie. So I would say Black Belly of the Tarantula, because there's a cop in that movie that reminds me a lot of the detective in this movie, where he's like putting everything into, like, there's a lot of movies where you can actually glean from that detective aesthetic or whatever, that's that specific character. And I'm sorry you asked me because I'm going to take forever to come up with my 3 movies. No. But Black Belly of the Tarantula, I would say, is a must. I would say even Deep Red, while it's not altogether referenced in this movie, there's a lot of things that happen in Deep Red that you can kind of, plug into this movie, like the the psychic in the beginning of the movie, for example. It brings in some of that supernatural stuff. I think if you have that license already where you're able to accept anything coming at you in a Giallo, that movie will definitely set you up for this one, because there's so many bonkers things that happen in this one. I think something like, because it kind of leans a lot into religion too, so I would even throw in something like God, what's the one?
Won't torture
Shadow?
Duckling?
No, the Shadow one. The butterfly shadow movie. The
Bloodstained Butterfly.
Bloodstained, yeah. I don't know why I was trying to put a shadow in there, but the Bloodstained Butterfly, I think, is a good is a good movie to watch before you watch this movie. By the way,
I was going to say, where do we get our colored gels? Because I don't think we've gotten a movie that really does the Bava thing from Blood and Black Lace, or like that kind of aesthetic. Because we get that there's a lot of green and blue and red in this movie.
Okay, whatchamacallit?
Amer?
No, because that's kind of the same as this in terms of being a modern thing or whatever. Right. But
Strange
I would say, God damn it, when you put somebody on the spot, like all your information is wiped away clean.
We've got like 5 or 6, I think, movies, so I think we're okay. But I do want to, Brian,
Blood or Black Lace. I think that one, if you watch that, I think if you watch Blood and Black Lace,
That's. I mean, I think you should watch that before you watch any Giallo.
Right.
Yeah, got to start where it
That
started.
and Deep Red are kind of like your 101s.
He slaps his girl a lot in that movie. So,
And I do want to get back to that because you did mention that earlier, and I know we're just over time, but we'll stay after class for a couple minutes.
There you go.
So Brian, you mentioned the repeated slaps in this in this film. I found them to be very funny, but only because I got that it was a callback to these other films. I feel like if you're coming into this cold and it's just like these women getting slapped across the face repeatedly, you could be like, wait, what is going on here? Is this supposed to be a joke? Because it's not funny.
Right. No, go ahead.
What's a little weird, and I don't know, like we're in a different climate now, right? Like politically, socially, all that bullshit or whatever.
Boy, howdy.
I feel like a movie like this, unfortunately, well, I don't know. I don't know, because a lot of times when we're faced with a lot of these things in terms of, socially, whatever, good horror movies actually like start
they shove it in your face
in response to all this stuff or whatever. Do I think a movie like The Editor would come out like during, in 2025 and beyond or whatever? I don't know. Like, I think it's definitely, because you did say certain, things in reference to them calling him a cripple or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not super plugged into like modern times in terms of like, movies and media, or whatever, to understand what's okay and what's not anymore. Like I just don't know anymore. So I don't know, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in this movie, but I think they also do it. I hesitate in saying this, but I think they do it with respect, because there's a lot of shit that happens where it's like, what the hell?
It's designed to push buttons. I mean, I think it's designed to like, push against the boundaries of quote good taste, and just be like, what do you think of this?
But we also live in a world where that was accepted. That was like a woman getting slapped in the face for no fucking reason whatsoever was a normalcy back then,
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say,
and not just in movies, but just in fucking real life. So yes,
well, yeah, I wouldn't
don't do that.
Right, I wouldn't
I'm
say
telling you
accepted.
across the
I would
screen,
say
do not do that. But
tolerated
totally
in media and on some degrees. But yes, to your point, Brian, never do that in real life, because it's not funny, it's not cool.
But in make believe, it's super funny.
But and that's the thing, is I think to your point, Brian, a movie like this could come out today, but I think it would be sort of in the same vein as what we saw 11 years ago, which is it's kind of a direct to video, direct to DVD kind of thing. You're not talking about like Lionsgate is not going to put out something that has,
it's not a mainstream,
that kind of material where they're using that kind of language and they're slapping people around for fun. I don't think, anyway.
I don't think they're interested in that. That is not Astron 6.
I think if anything, if you were to like correlate this to something recent that came out big budget wise that actually made a bit of a splash, I would actually point to Malevolence, because I think something like you can almost see the DNA in like Malevolence and Triple X, or is it
Maxine?
Maxine with the Triple X or whatever in it. Like something like that.
About the Vin Diesel movie.
I was I reached out, I caught that one.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for protecting me. But no, like I think something like that has its DNA in this movie, I would say, because like I think in order for this one to walk, which is funny to say, but you needed this one to walk in order for Maxine to run. You know what I mean? Because people don't understand the references in that movie, much like this movie. But I think if you were to watch this movie and then watch some of those other movies that I just mentioned, maybe it sticks a little bit better. I don't know.
Yes, I also cannot accept anybody thinking that Maxine ran. I think Pearl ran. Maxine tripped and stumbled over the finish line and got slapped repeatedly in the face. Anyhow,
no, people love that fucking movie. Like, it's unfortunate that we didn't discuss it here, because it does have some Giallo ties to it or whatever.
It does,
but I think that movie, could have been more, I think.
Oh yeah, it was one of my greater disappointments. I missed Pearl and X in the theaters, and I vowed I'm not going to miss Maxine in the theater. So I paid my money. I sat down. I left completely dispirited. But anyhow, we do have one comment left over from an hour ago from Jonas Hallberg. All deceased except the dead comedy Giallo. I forget the context of this. Maybe this is asking if there are other Giallo parody out there, but
all deceased except the dead comedy Jelly. Damn it! I wish I knew what that was in reference.
Jonas, if you're still there.
Yeah. But also, it sounds like
he left an hour ago, man.
You went to go watch the editor.
That's right. All right. Well, I'm going to leave to go do something Sunday-ish, but I appreciate everybody hanging out to talk about or watch us talk about the editor and jump in to chime in. Yes, there you go. This is not a paid promotion, but it's also not. I don't know. Anyway, I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. I'm going to introduce at the end of the show, because I didn't do it at the outset because we were talking about how great we all look, specifically Brian, when we first got started, got distracted. Brian Martinez of the Giallo Room and AC, Aaron Christensen of Horror 101 with Dr. AC. All their information is down below, along with the folks who couldn't join us today for various reasons. Support all of our fearsome faculty and their various creative and critical endeavors. Join us back in June for apparently murder rock. I don't know. Is this a rock and roll Giallo, or is it about like a rock, like a mountain where a lot of murders take place? I have no idea.
Just watch the trailer, my friend.
I'm just really excited.
Yeah, same.
I don't know if you're ironically excited or genuinely excited. Either way, I'm scared. Oh wait, hold on a second. Agitation Free says you're getting here at the 0 hour. Thank you.
Nice.
Love this movie. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Agitation.
Thank you, by the way, for anybody who hasn't seen the editor, feel free to watch this entire review because we do not spoil it.
Yeah, we haven't spoiled anything. It's
well, there you go. So anyway, thanks everybody again for hanging out. And until next time, whatever that is, thank you very much. Take care. And that was class dismissed. That's what I was looking for.
That's your tagline.
Yes.